Hello, welcome in everyone.
Hey y'all, welcome. We are excited to have you join us to talk about one of our favorite programs at Parenting for Liberation, the Black Parent Innovation Lab. Pew, 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 pew. Uh, we're excited to share with you on this webinar more information about the program, how to apply. Um, we're going to hear from some of our innovation fellows from the last cohort, share about their experience. And then we're going to run through the application, the deadline, best answers, best practices around application, and answer any questions that you may have just about the program overall. So I want to just say welcome, and I'm going to get started. My name is Trina Green, and I am the Executive Director of Parenting for Liberation. And I'm going to also introduce the other people on the slides. We have well, actually, I'm not supposed to do that. I'm just supposed to do this welcome grounding. And I want to ground us as you come, particularly for this cycle of the Innovation Lab. We're really focusing on how important it is, especially in this current political moment, how important it is to activate, organize, and engage where you are. Too often as parents, we may feel like, well, our time is up. We can't be out in these streets with our babies. What's my role in the movement? How can I have affect change right now as a parent? Sometimes parenting makes us feel like our world becomes too small, like all we have is just our immediate family. And I wanted to share this clip. I had the opportunity of presenting at the Get Free conference hosted by Black Feminist Futures. It took place last month. I had the opportunity to present and also attend some of the keynote sessions and plenary sessions. And something that was posed as a question at the end of this keynote panel, a question was asked by an audience member that now that I'm a parent, I feel a little more afraid to do some of this organizing work. And the person was curious, like, how can you still be a Black feminist? How can you still do this work? How can you still build and organize, even being a parent? And Makia shared their experience. Their parent is a Black Panther, and they shared how their parent parented them towards liberation and allowed their parenting to not limit their organizing potential, but to shift it and amplify it and grow it. So I wanted to share this clip with you all.
Good morning, everyone. You have a gift, and the point of a gift is to give. I think that in that moment, that was a radical parenting. That was radical parenting, yeah? And that one, we don't always understand that our job as parents, my mother's job as a parent wasn't always to go out and do something out there. Sometimes it was. Sometimes it was to do something in the institutions where I was engaged. At my school, in my neighborhood. Parenting, I think, and she told me this too, can be a conservative, an act that makes you feel more conservative, because now you're scared, right? You're afraid for your child. So you're less willing to do X, Y, and Z. I looked at my mom's FBI file, and the last part of it said, they declassified her, or they reduced her security, whatever it's called, like the label, where they say you're at this level of security threat to this level of security threat. And it said because she moved out of the Panther Pad, she had disassociated herself to some degree. And that was in April 1974. I was born May 2nd, 1974. So I understand the question, I understand the question. And yet she then built, Black liberation schools, because I was, nursery school, because that's how old I was. And then she helped build the Black Science Skills Center when we had to go there. And then she radicalized the Black parents at the high school. All I'm saying is, we fight where we stand.
Beautifully stated. we fight where we stand. And so, just as a way to check in and get folks in the room, if you don't mind, in the chat, um, to write where you're calling in from or logging in from. Like, where is your place? Where are you grounded? And just thinking about this innovation cycle are really going to be centered on place-based organizing. And so thinking about where you are, where you live, where your children are, where you spend your time. How can you build community? How can you organize or transform in your own place? And this is really rooted in the restorative justice principle, which is what this cohort is going to be focused on. The restorative justice principle that you have a right to raise your children where you are with support and sustainability. And so I see folks in the chat from San Diego, from Los Angeles, from South Central, Crenshaw area. As we're starting to build out this cohort, we're really thinking about um, how where you are and your home can be a place of organizing potential, and that you don't have to think about I have to be out in these streets in a particular way, and that parenting is place based, and so how we move and grow and build our communities is a strategy for our survival and our thriving. So I see folks coming from Santa Clarita, got somebody all the way from Nigeria on the call. So yeah, we have folks calling in from different places, and just wanting to welcome you all here and really help you begin to think about where you are as a place of opportunity to organize. And I'll pass it to Paradise.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Um, I'll introduce, I guess, our panelists. So we have Ivory Rose Purnell Chambishi, one of our 2024 fellow, and then also Wumi and Everett, our little dynamic duo, and myself, Paradise. I'll be watching the chat, so if you have any questions, please put them there. For our agenda today, might take a second to load. We've already did our welcome. I'll cover a little bit what is the Innovation Lab. We'll go into some fellows' testimonies, and then review the application. And then lastly, if y'all have any questions, and then a closing. I see somebody from Hawthorne, so hey. Hey. Yes. So we're just getting started. For folks that just come in, our innovation lab is it outside our right now this year we are only accepting applicants from the California area. And yeah, I'll share a little bit of background about the Innovation Lab. It started in 2022, and to date we have resourced over 25 Black parents and caregivers. The Black Parent Innovation Lab is an opportunity for Black parents slash caregivers to test, to design, to experiment, to iterate and hone new strategies to help their communities thrive. With the 6-month fellowship providing wraparound services, support with our facilitation team, our healing folks, and community members to really provide critical solutions to issues that are happening in our world and not only in California, but things that are happening across the diaspora. And like Trina said, this year we really want to focus on reproductive justice, which kind of ties into what we do as an org and understanding the importance of raising our children in a safe and violent-free environment, but also thinking about how it can be healthy, how it can be sustainable, and that we can't just do it alone. We need a village, and we need community to support us. And so really thinking about the ways that folks can organize where they're at, and not feel the need to kind of recreate the wheel elsewhere, and really dive deep into the community that you're already in, or like providing mutual aid and support services. So that's really important for us to focus on this year. So this is a little bit of our dates. So we launched our application on Juneteenth this year, and our application is open up until this upcoming Saturday to July 19th. Um, After that, we'll be doing some virtual group interviews with folks. And then folks will be getting an acceptance or redirection letter mid-August. Sorry. And then we'll have our first welcome virtual kickoff program September 13th. And then we'll be having bi-weekly virtual sessions for the duration of the program. And then we'll have an in-person lab, which is a 4-day retreat in SoCal to bring all of the fellows together to kind of really hone in on the community that you're organizing, go through the understanding and really grounding in the practices of the design cycle and the principles and really kind of thinking about any projects or ideas that you want to do with your yes, redirection. With your community. And then again, we'll have some more virtual sessions, and providing teach-ins, kind of doing some skills building with everyone. And then lastly, we'll come together again for our in-person closing celebration and Black Futures Month, which is in February, the weekend of February 19th to the 22nd. And this will be a time for you to showcase your project from start to finish, any artifacts that you might have, and really invite your community that you're working with out to come see what's good. And so we'll celebrate it. We'll have all the things for y'all to celebrate and feel celebrated by community. And then lastly, we'll do like a closing webinar, which just would just kind of be a celebration of the 6-month program, also to get any evaluations, any feedback that y'all might have, and just like really to provide any any last closing thoughts. But it's not the end. We all tell all our fellows that this is a lifelong, support group or just like support space. So once you're in the P4L family, we're here for the end. And we'll always figure out ways to support y'all on your journey. That is what I have for the dates. Okay. So again, like I mentioned, we do have a team of facilitators. So throughout the whole process, there will be one-on-one coaching for folks to have like questions, have like feedbacks, have insights, and kind of get that support, and like kind of go through the feedback and processing of your journey. And then also community, this is a cohort style. Each cohort, we try to accept up to 10 fellows. So you will be in conversation religiously through chat, through different platforms, connecting with community and leaning on them if you have any support or need anything. Um, Sorry, one second. Okay. And then lastly, we also love to support our families with children because we are a parenting organization. So we support with childcare. This last cycle, we had a lot of families with young children. So we partner with Ashley Burrell, who graduated from our first cohort with Nature Time Oakland, providing hands-on nature camp and mini innovators camp for the kiddos. And then lastly, we will provide the fellows with $5,000 upon completion of the project in different intervals, which will be explained at a later time. So that's what we have for y'all. And then we'll have more space for questions at the end. Okay. Next, coming to the stage from the Crenshaw district, the lovely Ivory Rose. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I'm a little bit of a singer, but yeah, we have Ivory. Ivory joined us last year, as a Black Parent Innovation Lab fellow, bringing all of her love, all of her joy, all of her dynamicness, to South Central, to Parenting for Liberation. Been in the organizing community nonprofit industry for over 20 years, supporting LA County, and really just out girl, nature girly. If you don't see her at a writer's retreat, you might see her dash into the airport or climbing some mountains. But right now you see her on our Zoom screen, as our Zoom screen, and sorry. And now she is serving as our education coordinator for Parenting for Liberation and doing all the dynamic things. If you don't catch her today, catch her on Saturday. Got a circle. I'll put that in the chat too. But coming to the stage, Ivory will be talking about Hey Sexy Sister Circle, and the work that she's done. So I'll pass it to Ivory to share a little bit more about her experience, and then we'll jump into Q&A. Okay.
Thank you so much, Paradise. It's really an honor to be here. I'm thrilled to share a little bit about my experiences in the Innovation Lab. This opportunity came at a really wonderful time because over the last few years, with different things in my life and kind of looking at the political landscape, I realized that I'm very clear on what my priorities are, and that's to pour into my community unapologetically, to spoil my little babies. And I use that word very intentionally because I have two little Black girls, biological kiddos, and a bonus adult daughter, a bonus son. And Black kids don't get spoiled, and by spoiled, I mean centered, prioritized, cared for, considered as sacred. And Parenting for Liberation came at a really opportune time when I was looking for something to attach my creativity, my passion, my exploration of, a new iteration of what my professional life might look like, or my outside of my day job work would look like. And it was just a beautiful experience. From beginning to end, being in your very seat around this time last year, the intentionality that went along with the webinar, the informational webinar, when we got to the formal webinar once accepted, the mindfulness, honoring our struggle, honoring our humanity, honoring our complexity as parents and caregivers who also have other hyphens, and always being so encouraging and supportive really made me recognize that I was in the right place and this is for me. And something that I also really appreciated was the groundedness in who we are. I think sometimes when we hear the word innovation, at least, sometimes when I'm not on a higher mental plane, I think about, Silicon Valley or the tech industry, all this kind of stuff, forgetting that Black folks have a deep legacy of innovation. Like, we innovate in our sleep. Like, we about that innovation life, and it's partly from our creativity and our spirituality, because I think we have a great connection to our ancestors and to nature and spirit, but also from the standpoint of necessity, surviving this doggone hostile environment that we've been subjected to. We've had to be innovative. We were the original sustainability people, with your grandma using that crock pot, that country crock butter container to put her noodles in, or her rice, or her grease in. I'm real. Or the crown metallic container that had never had them cookies in there. To this very day, I have a container like that, and it has sewing supplies in it, and it was my grandma. So this lab, it really affirms our legacy and history as innovators, while also creating supportive space for us to think about our struggles creatively, for us to receive critical investment, because I know I have plenty of ideas of things I want to implement. I actually think I invented DoorDash, but didn't have the resources to realize it. But the idea of being provided with up to $5,000 to actually implement our idea, and also to recognize that we have financial struggles, so some of the funding can be used as like a consultant fee for the various efforts that we do. So I can't say enough about this program. I was just shocked at the retreat when I looked around and saw that pretty much every need was taken care of. You know, there was a healing table. I burned my finger on an air fryer, and there was some like the little cream you put on your finger for that on the healing table, along with, you know, an easeful schedule, encouragement, provocation, you know, because we want to be better by having people ask us certain questions and give us critical feedback, which the coaches did. But the coaches were always very supportive and mindful and definitely considered our whole being and not just the deadlines for this program, the timeline that we need to implement, the finished product. I really do feel like I was cared for holistically. So I don't know if that's my time. I did try to set my little timer on my phone, but I accidentally pressed circuit training. I'm not circuit training right now. But if that's my spiel, you know, okay. And
You trying to take us to the mountaintop. You trying to take us to the mountaintop. Don't worry, we gonna get the view. We gonna get the view. Thank you, Ivory. This will be the last time. Want to introduce our first ever couple of our Black innovators, distant relatives, which is founded and started by Wumi and Everett. Wumi is a mother, a dancer, educator, activist, as well as a PhD candidate for global inclusion and social development with UMass Boston, but also got her master's in public health and Africana Studies from UCLA, right now in Nigeria doing work for Black African women and girls globally, and thinking about ways that they can practice self-care and move throughout this world. So really excited to have Wumi on the call. Also would uplift her partner Everett, who was raised in Georgia, and is the youngest sibling of 5, and also a retired U.S. Army vet. And now works in business management and research development. So happy to have you on this call with us. So Wumi, talk to us now. What
Thank
you out
you.
there doing? What y'all doing? Building Black interracial solidarity. Because
Yeah,
if you started in the US, you started in California. Now you're in Nigeria.
right.
You're doing the
I'm
work.
in Nigeria.
Talk
Yes,
to
doing
us.
the work. Yes, doing the work.
Yes.
Hi everyone. It's such a blessing to be here. Ivory, you like took a lot of what I'm gonna say about all the goodness of this innovation lab, but I want to start with, community. So, wherever it is not here, we have 5 kids, and he's with 4 of them right now doing different things. So, but he's here in the spirit, and I'm hopefully he can join us in the chat. But I just want to kind of uplift the word community. When we came across this opportunity, um, we're from a blended family. My background is Yoruba and Baju from Nigeria, and as Paradise said, my husband is African American from Albany, Georgia. So there's a lot of, like, of course, we fell in love with each other, all that good stuff. However, when we started really being intimate with each other, we realized that there was a lot of conversation that we're not open to having, or that we didn't know how to unpack, right? Because we both have very distinct cultural backgrounds. So even though we're Black, right, we have a lot of cultural differences that has been weaponized against us through different systems. So both from the African diaspora side, and also from the African continental side, through the media and through the educational system. So we realized that it wasn't just, between us, like we're also raising kids. We have children of different ages. We have toddlers, we have an 18-year-old, we have a 13-year-old, and we have a 5-year-old. So we have twins toddlers. So yeah, and we realized that, we have to find ways whereby we can have this conversation, because it's not just about us, like the parenting, like we are doing this for the future, trying to build liberatory practices within our family, but it was very difficult, try and do this work alone. So when we found out about this program, it felt like, is this even real? To be in a space whereby you are affirmed, whereby when I brought my children, for example, to the first day, and like they were taken care of. Like, I don't know about y'all, but like I've never been in a space whereby I feel so comfortable, like just being without feeling like my children are not in somebody's hand, or that, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it was such a beautiful thing and a really transformative experience to be in space with people who understood, come as you are. All our needs were met, like literally. We were resting, we were eating right, like we were breathing good air. I mean, like we were for real. These are things that, it's supposed to be, it's a human right. Like it's not even supposed to be something that we talk about like it's a privilege, but this is what was happening in this space. I felt affirmed. And then my husband, being with them in that space as a parent, where we were standing, watching, I'm thinking about the words from that video about like how we organize from where we're standing. Like he was my innovation partner. And it was such a beautiful experience to go through this process with them. So when we're trying to think about like, what do we want to create with this program? We thought about our experience, our personal relationship with each other, and we decided I wanted to create something like build more, create more, what we call like a solidarity between like African immigrants and I mean African diaspora people and African people from the continent, because of, again, all these isms. So then we came up with distance relative as a way to to build our collective power as Black people. And we do a lot of, we do films, we do this through film screenings. We also do this through like building community through food. And we also have like a youth program where we incorporate youth into our programming as well. So, I mean, there's going to be more. I don't want to go through past my 3 minutes, but I have more to add. But we'll talk about that later. But I'm really grateful to have someone who trusts you, like organization will trust you, sisterhood, brotherhood, and that is where like we have radical hope. Like there's nothing that is impossible, basically, with this program. But we have to dream, and we have to really think creatively about what community is, particularly with the shifting admin. I don't want to even mention the person's name, but just what is going on within our communities today, right? And a lot of things are shifted. So we have to think differently about what community is and how we can really radically hope and actually build collectively to meet this moment. So I'm so happy that you guys are here. I hope that you do please apply for this really incredible program.
Mhm. Yes, thank you, Wumi. Appreciate y'all. Yes, I think something I didn't mention when I was talking about the lab, but both of our fellows kind of mentioned it, is we don't want parents or just like Black people in general to feel like they have to compete or just like kind of work in a deficit. So that's why we resource and like think about like all the ways that we can support like the whole family, not just the parent or just like one person, like kind of a caregiver doing the program. And so that's also like kind of why we're like kind of framing it this way for this upcoming year. So thank y'all. So I'll lead into our first question. So as I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, for this upcoming cohort, we really want to focus on RJ, and thinking about the ways that not only can parents organize where they're at, and like kind of y'all mentioned a little bit in y'all spills of not only organizing within the home, but also organizing outside of the home, organizing a grandma house, organizing in the schools. So we're asking fellows to come in with a site that they're ready to transform or kind of work with throughout their whole fellowship. How have you engaged with your community during your innovation process progress? Yes, reproductive justice.
Okay, I think I'll start.
Okay.
So my project shaped up to be creating space and supports for Black parents to be open and askable and approachable with their children about sexual behavior and sexual activity. Because of different statistics that indicate that peers are more of the go-to source and the misinformation that happens that way. And then also with the fact that having more open conversations can influence young people delaying their first sexual encounter. With their first sexual encounter, the age at which they have their first sexual encounter largely influences STD transmission and unwanted pregnancy, I thought it was important to spark those conversations and help parents understand that we kind of need to overcome our own traumas and baggage around our sexual experiences in order to be that safe harbor and refuge for our children who are being influenced by social media and peer groups, et cetera, et cetera. So the way that I engaged the community was by talking to the people in my immediate circle. And these were folks who were involved in different nonprofit organizations, who are peer educators in different communities. In that very circle, you see somebody who works with the California Black Women's Health Project, but who I know from going to a camp focused around creating opportunities for Black people to go in nature. And then another person in my circle, she works in Watts and different nonprofit organizations and works in housing support and anti-displacement. So I kind of felt like, those commercials where like, you're not the proprietor, but you're the client too. Like the people in my community, not distant folks, would be the ones who would benefit from this content and also be contributors to the content, because I didn't position myself as an expert, but more just a facilitator of holding space for these different conversations. So another way that I made it rooted in my community is by holding one of the events, in my home, to have this sense of intimacy, the sense of connection. And then I also had the larger event at a local healing space called Crenshaw Yoga and Dance that caters to a predominantly Black clientele. So the kind of, next steps for my project will be to host more of these circles, and then also to explore an initiative with the California Black Women's Health Project around autonomy, around freedom, around communication. We're exploring a circle that also has a twerking component, where we, encourage people to feel comfortable in their bodies and to destigmatize sensuality and being expressive, because we need to kind of let go of some of those apprehensions around talking about sex, because the kids have urges, they are made in the design that they've been made. So, if we are not the first sources of information, and even if it's not, if it's delivered awkwardly, we are still the safe harbor and the refuge and an open connecting point for our children. So that's kind of how I address the community aspect.
Okay, Ivory, pleasure activists come through. Wumi, would you like to share how have you engaged your community throughout your innovation process?
Yes. So we also started with our immediate family members. We also went to different birthday parties and the parks, and just had just general conversation with people about how they build relationship, because I wanted to know how do Black people get together, what brings us close together, what keeps us staying together, because it's one thing to meet friends and say hi, but how do you actually intentionally build relationships? And that's what we're interested in. How do you build trust? Because another thing that came up about not trusting, being in certain communities, and that's again because of a lot of the false narrative that we heard about each other. It was hard to build trust around certain issues. So we're trying to really figure that out. So we did a lot of just conversations, with people at different spaces, like I said, with the parks, family members going to parties, and also in our workspaces as well. And then so from our conversation with people, we realized that yes, we love to have, potlucking and, being around each other, just being in community with each other in spaces where we feel seen and safe and brave. And so that's how we approach the work. And we also learned that we like to, tell stories, and that we like playing games. So card games, hand games, just incorporating play and creating family-oriented spaces was one of the ways that we build trust and community with each other. So that's how we actually started, and we incorporated a lot of these activities in our events. So we had our first, we call it like a pilot event, was the film screening on Africa versus African Americans. And we did that to kind of understand like the baseline of where we are. Are we still in this, these isms, how is it really affecting us, with the introduction of the media, I mean, not media, but the social media, for example, and all these AI tools, there are a lot of shifts, even though we are part of this globalized world. And even though it's getting smaller, but it's also getting very disconnecting, right? So we wanted to really understand like how is this conversation around us as people still happening? And we learned that, during my time, the way that we're articulating what being an African is and what being a Black person is has shifted, has changed. However, like young people are still building a relationship, but they're not really intentional. They might know about like different Afrobeat artists or the different types of food, but we're not really going to each other's houses. We're not really sharing intimate spaces and times with each other. So, and that's what we're learning from our conversation with folks. So we were trying to just engender ways whereby we can do these things and where we can continue to like build not just our trust, but from the trust to build solidarity based on that trust. So, and that's how we approach our community. And then, we believe in radical collaboration, which is something that we learned in our innovation lab. So a lot of our programming is with other cohorts, right? So, for example, Melinda, and organization. So that is very intentional too, because for us, like we're thinking about the diaspora, even though we're in Santa Clarita, we recently moved there while we're actually applying. Like our programming was, in LA proper. So, however, going forward, our plan is to, have program in multiple different sites and such. So I'll leave it as that because I know we have 2 more questions, I think.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for sharing. Um, yes. Okay. So let me see. So again, throughout, you kind of just mentioned it, Wumi, throughout like the design cycle, the innovation model, or the Black liberation model that we use. We have like Black innovation, creativity, sometimes it's feedback, there's testing, there's conversations going on. So when y'all applied or proposed 3 solutions like to communities that y'all are a part of. And throughout, time, facilitators, fellows, and through your curious conversations, y'all got feedback, and support and resources, around your idea and like what is the pressing moment for your community's need to really transform. Can you describe a breakthrough moment or a aha experience you had like during the fellowship, like through feedback that y'all received?
There was like a few ahs for us. And I wish Eric is here to talk about one of them, but while we were still in our early stages during our retreat, we realized that like we had so many like wonderful ideas about using theater, doing all kind of beautiful things, right? But the core thing we're trying to achieve really is how we can build relationships, right, with each other, like to understand each other, like our cultural, to strengthen our cultural understanding of each other. And then Brittany, who also happens to be our mentor, was like, well, you guys have a story. Like your story as a couple is really powerful. Like, and lean on that. And it's like, yeah, like we know we're here because of that, but we never really thought about it as something that is worth working from. Right. We came into the fellowship because we have this tension, not within the relationship, but in terms of our conversation and these cultural differences. And we didn't see that, oh, you know what, we can also use our story. Our story is the innovation, and how we used our story to innovate around these issues but this is why we're here. So that was one of the aha moments. The second aha moment was during the early fire. So we had, it was during the time where we were planning our second iteration. And we were so paralyzed because we weren't really sure the ethical, like we're all in our heads about like, is it even ethical to try to rent a space right now? We're planning to rent an Airbnb at a time where people were being displaced, and there was a lot of, just horror. There was just so much going on, and we weren't feeling right, like about what we wanted to do. Like, do we still organize this events? Do we still do this? How do we do it? By being intentional without, disregard for the needs of the community. We don't want to take away resources, right? That's where we're coming from. And then Brittany was like, wait, hold up. Like, this is actually when you want to do this, because this is what the people need. We need community. We need spaces to convene. People need spaces to come and just eat and just talk, right? You don't have to do all this extra stuff, but just make sure this happens, because it's during chaos and organized chaos, and there's another word that I'm thinking about, but like through through uncertainty, excuse me, yes, and chaos, that's when you actually have one of your best ideas. Like, you have to keep creating. You cannot just stop, right? So that was the second aha moment that I want to share, is like, when you're going through it and you're feeling like you shouldn't do this, that's actually when you should need to lean into it, right? And pivot, but do not stop. Just lean into it, be uncomfortable, and go at it. That's it.
Okay. So I would say I had a major pivot too, because when I went into this, my intention was actually to focus on the youth themselves, because my initial idea was partly motivated from the fact that I have a tween daughter who started saying certain things and doing certain things, and I saw certain things on the web browser, and I was like, skirt, we need to have more conversations. But my frame was like to work with the youth on, certain messaging, on digital literacy, on self-esteem. But as I started doing my research and having conversations, one of our modules was called Curious Conversations, where we got guidance on how to have thoughtful conversations with the people in our circle, or not just the people in our circle, but with people that could help inform the project design. And I talked to a high school teacher and a high school counselor and realized that in the course of what they've experienced in their high school setting, they reflected on their own journeys and the fact that they themselves never really had sex education, absolutely did not have conversations with their parents, with the caregivers in their lives, and that there was just kind of a fear and an avoidance message that they felt like didn't serve them throughout their lives. And then I reflected on my own life, and I'm like, that's the same journey of mine. And then with more conversations, that became more and more apparent. So I also was assigned Brittany Braithwaite as my coach, and that was very serendipitous because she just so happened to have been a sex educator for different parts of her career, including having a company focused on women's health and wellness, reproductive health and wellness. And I was starting to kind of have that hunch from what was coming up from the Curious Conversation. And then she kind of like affirmed it from all of her years of training, that so what if you inform, educate, empower these young people, then they go home and have a message of silence or a message of shame or a message of, just not the affirmation of pleasure as okay, or of the not rightness, but like the naturalness of sexual intimacy and things of that sort. So that was probably my biggest shift, going from the young people themselves to the parents. And I think it was fruitful because in our circles, I saw so many aha moments. And one of them was so beautiful with a woman who is a mother of an adult daughter, 30 something, and then a 10-year-old, and just, you could see the light bulbs come on with her reflectiveness on how she wished she would have approached things differently with some of the information that we were sharing, that we discussed in the course of our circle. So yeah, it was I think an important pivot, and through the innovation process that has a whole cycle of things, it helps you kind of iterate your project. So, as you're thinking about your project, you should have some openness to the possibility that not only will your project evolve, but you will learn and grow and evolve in this process too, which I think is also the beauty of it.
Yes, be open to all the possibilities. Yeah, thank you both for sharing. And yeah, providing some insights to y'all experience. And also some affirmations to folks who are interested in applying for this upcoming cohort 4. Yeah, thank y'all so much for y'all time, and the wisdom y'all are sharing. I'm gonna transition, I guess, into the application part of it, and then we'll have space for questions. So for our application, there is a lot of demographic questions. We just want to know who you are, who you bring with you, what's your community looking like. And then in our application, we have about 6 questions where we just really want to know like who you are, what's the community you want to transform. And so let me see. For the application, we are asking folks to submit each response with a maximum of 250 words. And so the first question that we have is tell us your vision, which says describe your vision for a world that affirms Black children in fully realizing their right to parent in a safe and sustainable environment. What does your vision make possible for Black families today and in the future? Yeah, it's recommended. Keep it short, keep it short. Um, let's see. And so we really just want to see like what's your vision for today, and then also like thinking about the future, as well as um just ideology regarding Black parenting. And so that's one way. So tell us about your vision. The next question is think in systems. So identify a specific system, whether that could be child welfare, education, housing, healthcare, childcare, employment, etc., or things that we didn't mention here, that interrupt your vision and the hopes you have to address this through the Black Parent Innovation Lab. Um, and truly just thinking about like the community that you want to work with, and then like what systems interfere with that, or might disrupt that, and just sharing that. And how does the system perpetuate fear-based dynamics that limits Black parents' ability to raise their children in a safe and violent-free environment. And then lastly, kind of the theme of today is build where you are or organize where you stand, inviting you to tell us a specific place or site that you want to transform and why. What is your connection to this site or place? And then we have some examples of potential, but not limited to, organizing spaces, educating spaces, spaces where you're mobilizing people, such as schools, community centers, gardens, farms, places of worship, PTA, recreation center, libraries, housing complex, neighborhood council, daycare. Just really want to see what the site is and how are you impacted and your ties to that space, and like the vision for transforming it, and also acknowledging the importance of kind of, you know, building where you are, and then not feeling the need to like go out and like find a space, but just like kind of think about somewhere local that you attend, or like whether it's a coffee shop or like we mentioned, like a PTA, somewhere that you're regular in community with, rather than going out and finding a space. And then lastly, another one is like tell us your innovation. We are actually just for a little bit of a detailed site that you're interested in. And Miriam Kaba's 1 million experiments. There's a little information about that. They follow different people from all across the world, where they're doing mutual aid or organizing where they're at, whether that be transforming a police car to street medic care, and like a rideshare service for Black and trans folks, or whether that be a community card, or like during the pandemic, we saw a lot of raise of mutual aid free fridges pop up to meet the need of access to food insecurity. So really just, think of a site, think about the different ways you want to transform it, and really think about the collective power you hold, not only as a Black parent, but as someone who's raising liberated beings. And yeah, thank you for putting the question in the chat. And then it wouldn't be right without innovation if we didn't think about the future. So tell us why 2025 seems timely for this specific innovation place or site that you're trying to transform. And then what do you hope to gain from the Black Parent Innovation Lab experience? Yeah, no pressure, just sharing. We know the last 6 months and even 7 months of this year has been a lot, but we are resilient and we have been transforming, innovating along the way and meeting the needs of our communities. So this is no different. So yeah, just really want to share. You don't have to trauma dump or do anything like that. Just like briefly share why this time is timely. Everyday shifts, I get the news notifications. And so optional, if you want to record a video, just tell us about your site a little bit more, how you like to transform it, and how it helps be more liberated for a world of Black children and Black parents. Yes, in the application, there is space for you to access any questions. Also, you can email us. And it has like a list of everything. I don't think I see any questions just yet from the audience. But yeah, that's the application. Yeah. Do you have any questions? Any reflections? Feel free to either come off of mute or you can put them in the chat.
Paradise.
Hello. Hey, Lori, how you doing?
I am well. I am even more grounded from being in this session today. Thank y'all for y'all shares. It's very inspirational, and it feels like we're building a future where we can exist and our children can exist with our joy being honored and valued. So thank y'all.
Thank you.
You mentioned the design cycle, and my thought was, is the design cycle something that's taught during the cohort, or is that something else entirely?
No, yeah. Sometimes I jump the gun, but the design cycle is something that will be taught throughout the whole process of the fellowship. Um, there will be moments where we reference it, like in the webinar, before we come in person, but in the in-person lab, we really kind of go through it with y'all, step by step, and support you throughout the whole process of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Can I
it'll be
also
taught
add something?
different ways.
We also received this wonderful workbook that had all the different information and worksheets and prompts. So you will have a physical tool that can help you in the design process. And if you're a nerd, like some of us are, you'll really appreciate the workbook.
Yes. Yeah, y'all have the workbook. We'll have a digital workbook in a folder. So if you need something,
Shout
you
out
want
to Lorena Australia, our design expert who creates beautiful tools and curriculum. She will be one of the coaches as well, and she designs that lovely workbook and all these graphics. So shout out to Lorena.
Yeah.
Any other questions from folks about the application, about the cycle? Wumi says, since you ain't got no questions, y'all all must be ready to apply. So we're gonna be looking for these names. I see Asha, Elaine, Jen, Sophia, Lorraine, Talori, Oyibanke. We're gonna be expecting some applications. Okay, I see a question in the chat. Will the lab offer design or branding assistance like logos, developing social media presence? 1. 2, do you support content creation or developing a 501c3? Do you want me to answer those? Yes. Okay. So, again, one of our facilitators is Lorena Estrella. She is a comms expert. She does show folks about design and encourage folks to think about like the iconography and the graphics and things of that nature. She supports people with some curation. So yes to that one. And then the second question around, do you support content creation or developing a 501c3? I wasn't clear about content creation in regards to creating like social media content or web content, or did you mean like developing a 501c3? We don't necessarily push people to develop a 501c3. Folks can do whatever they feel is necessary for their work to be sustained. And so there we don't push against it, but we also don't require folks to establish a 501c3 to do this work. Some folks know about the nonprofit industrial complex, and sometimes it's may not be the right platform or vehicle for you to do and move the work that you want to do. So we really do encourage folks to think about what's the best platform and vehicle to continue their work and to sustain their work. It could be a LLC, it could be a 501c3, it could be a community trust fund. Like, it just really is up to the work that you're trying to do. So it could be fiscal sponsorship, right? So we don't necessarily say everyone should do this or push people down that pathway. But throughout the process, you could definitely think about what are the best ways to sustain the work beyond the initial innovation fund. Deborah, Wumi.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to also share that other fellows, you will be meeting other fellows, past fellows throughout this program who have branched out and did whatever was best for their group. So it might be an opportunity to also talk to them to ask the decisions behind why they chose to do nonprofit, LLC, and all these other things that might work for you. So yes, this is a big community. You're not alone in the process. Like we are literally like there's a lot of intersections in like our work. So you will have the chance to talk to other people too, to learn about why they choose to do what they did.
Yeah, and I also want to add that I think the beauty of how the program has been iterated in this current cycle is that I think time can reinvent the wheel, and innovation doesn't, at least in my understanding, doesn't always mean from scratch, new, independent, different. And the benefit, I think, to structuring the program where you all are identifying an existing community that you can potentially plug into is that you can maybe avoid reinventing the wheel or doing something as cumbersome as a 501c3 nonprofit organization, which sometimes there needs to be a new leader, a new standard bearer in a certain space. But the thing that I feel like I learned from my program or from my project is that it's not necessarily an organization that I created, but it's an offering that can potentially be folded under an existing initiative. And in my case, with the California Black Women's Health Project, it's they're a nonprofit organization, but we have people in our cohort who chose to go from the angle of a business that then partnered with the nonprofit organization, or even kind of built on to something that they were already doing that they maybe just didn't have the time to dedicate to delving into the offering that they were already doing. So what I think is something to kind of take on in your mind is that because it's iterative, it's open-ended, there isn't, such of a prescribed outcome. You got to do something. You got to create a project. You got to innovate. You got to have an artifact. Otherwise, Paradise is going to be looking at you like, what'd you do? And Trina too. But it's not a prescribed outcome for what you accomplish.
Yeah, I think something that we know, I think even in like this new administration, is that like the nonprofit industrial complex is not going to save us. Like it's going to be community, it's going to be us like raising funds, it's going to be us lending a hand and like meeting people where they're at. Not downplaying the 501c3. We are 501c3. But just know that there's power in community and there's power in our voice. So yeah, we also have the lovely Leslie Harris, who's our finance director, and will like I don't think she does like coaching around that, but she'll like do coaching around like budgeting and like how to maximize your the stipend that we provide. Um but yeah, we can definitely we can have more conversation. Asha, don't worry. We know you. I see Elaine's hand, or Elaine or Wumi. Were you gonna say something?
No,
I think that was
Elaine.
Ivory.
Oh,
Are there any more questions before we log off? You can put them in the chat or you can come off. Umi, were you going to pose the question?
Radical collaboration, which is, again, I keep saying that because that's really what saved us. This actually is one of our critical tools. So we're not a 501c, and that's intentional. So you have to also be strategic, right, about how you want to build this community. So for us, that was something very, very intentional. But we do collaborate with 501cs. Like I said, like one of our cohort members have an organization that we primarily host events in, and also we're planning to also do a film screening coming up in the fall with Roots and Routes, one of our other collaborators. So you're not alone. Right. So this is part of the whole innovation process, at least the way Parents for Liberation has remixed the whole innovation process. You will be radically collaborating, and we are taught to actually do that and to embody that in different ways.
that is one of our principles. Yeah, thank you so much for y'all sharing. I just want to plug for this upcoming Saturday at 11 a.m. We'll be doing a queering our parenting circle, and then I also drop in the application and the PDF. If y'all want to download the PDF, if y'all want to use our website where you can see questions, see the past fellows videos, that is also here. Oh yeah, Jen, drive safely with the kiddos. Yeah, we look forward to seeing your application, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And yeah, no, there's no more questions. Don't worry, this won't be the last time y'all see us. So thank y'all for y'all time, and we look forward to reading your applications real soon. And yeah, have a good day.
Bye.